Chapter 1. The Art of Letting Go. We can be inspired by the profound wisdom of Stoicism in our quest to master the art of letting go of the little things. This philosophical tradition offers priceless guidelines that can help us on the path to becoming unbothered. True freedom, according to Stoicism, is found in our capacity to direct how we react to the world. Let's examine some Stoic precepts that are compatible with the quest for emotional freedom. Focus only on what you can control. The chief task in life is simply this: to identify and separate matters so that I can say clearly to myself which are externals not under my control and which have to do with the choices I actually control. Where then do I look for good and evil? Not to uncontrollable externals, but within myself to the choices that are my own. Epictetus. Stoics advise us to focus all of our energy on the areas of life that we have control over. We frequently experience anxiety and frustration over things we cannot change, which eventually depletes our emotional reserves. Accepting that some situations are out of our control allows us to refocus on the areas where we have control and make positive changes. Practice negative visualization. What is quite unlooked for is more crushing in its effect, and unexpectedness adds to the weight of a disaster. This is a reason for ensuring that nothing ever takes us by surprise. We should project our thoughts ahead of us at every turn and have in mind every possible eventuality instead of only the usual course of events. Rehearse them in your mind. Exile, torture, war, shipwreck. All the terms of our human lot should be before our eyes. Seneca, thinking about the worst-case scenarios that could occur, is a potent Stoic technique. By doing this, we build resilience and come to terms with the fact that most of our fears are unfounded or controllable. Accepting the transience and ambiguity of life can make us less attached to unimportant things and more grateful for what we have right now. Detach from external results. You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. Marcus Aurelius. Stoics advise us to strive for excellence in our actions and endeavors without getting caught up in the outcomes. We relieve ourselves of the weight of success or failure when we disassociate ourselves from the result. This strategy enables us to stop being so fixated on the outcome and instead concentrate on giving it our all and enjoying the process. Embrace virtue and wisdom. The development of virtue and wisdom is at the heart of Stoicism. We lay a strong foundation for emotional strength by valuing traits like courage, temperance, and justice. Understanding the ephemeral nature of emotions and realizing that frustration and annoyance are transient and subject to change are key components of wisdom. Accept the reality as it is, for we are naturally disposed to admire more than anything else the man who shows fortitude in adversity. Seneca. Stoicism reminds us that life is full of ups and downs, and that it is normal to run into difficulties. We can approach adversity with a level head, adapt to circumstances, and find opportunities for growth even in trying times by accepting the inherent unpredictability of life. The Stoic philosophy encourages us to see challenges as opportunities for growth on a personal level. Instead of letting minor irritations control us, we can take a proactive stance by looking for opportunities to transform these difficulties into instructive lessons and life-changing experiences. We start to notice a shift in our perspective as we apply these Stoic principles to the art of letting go. We find ourselves embracing a newfound sense of tranquility and inner peace as the little things that used to bother us lose their power over our emotions. In actual practice, it can be especially effective to combine mindfulness practices with Stoic principles. With the help of mindfulness, we can fully engage in every moment while observing our thoughts and feelings as they come to us without passing judgment. This awareness allows us the freedom to deliberate over our responses rather than impulsively responding to unimportant triggers. Using Stoic wisdom to liberate your emotions. In the previous section, we discussed the Stoic tenets that can help us on this journey and introduced the idea of letting go. Let's now explore more concrete ways to put Stoic wisdom and mindfulness practices to use to free ourselves from the weight of the trivial things that irritate us. Using a Stoic acceptance technique. When we are no longer able to change a situation, we are challenged to change ourselves. Viktor Frankl. The fundamental tenet of Stoicism is to passively accept the circumstances of the present moment. The Stoics held that our perceptions of external events, not the events themselves, are what causes suffering. We gain the capacity to react calmly and evenly to life's irritations by embracing Stoic acceptance. The key to control is not in controlling external events, but in controlling your own mind. Epictetus. The next time something bothers you in the way it usually does, pause for a moment. Recognize your initial emotional reaction and then deliberately decide to accept the circumstance as it is, without ruminating on the negative or trying to change what has already happened. Regular practice will help you become less sensitive to insignificant disturbances. The dichotomy of control. The Stoics made a distinction between internal and external factors. We can let go of pointless worries about situations that are out of our control by concentrating on what is within our power. Make a list of the things that are currently bothering you as an exercise. Create 2 columns on the list: things I can control and things I cannot control. Think about the last column and decide consciously to let go of your attachment to those elements. Focus your efforts on the first column while being proactive in resolving the problems under your control. Love of fate, or amor fati. The Stoic principle of amor fati teaches us to accept all facets of life, including difficulties and setbacks, with love and gratitude. Adversity can become a chance for growth if we accept and even embrace the full range of experiences. My formula for greatness in a human being is amor fati. That one wants nothing to be different, not forward, not backward, not in all eternity. Not merely bear what is necessary, still less conceal it. All idealism is mendacity in the face of what is necessary, but love it. Friedrich Nietzsche. Remind yourself of amor fati whenever you encounter minor inconveniences or setbacks. Accept the circumstance as an opportunity to grow and learn. Consider, what can I gain from this experience? The little things can become stepping stones on your path to becoming unbothered when you change your perspective in this way. Use a negative mental image. As was already mentioned, negative visualization is a potent Stoic exercise that involves thinking about possible bad outcomes. We lessen the emotional toll of unforeseen events by mentally preparing for difficult situations. Schedule some negative visualization time each week. Imagine situations in which the minor irritations you typically experience grow into more serious issues. Then picture yourself handling the situation coolly and wisely, overcoming the difficulties with ease. This exercise not only strengthens your resilience, but also enables you to recognize the relative insignificance of most minor irritations in daily life. Temperance as a virtue. One of the main virtues of Stoicism is temperance, which emphasizes self-control and moderation. By exercising temperance, we can prevent overreacting to minor irritants and keep a clear head. Recognize when your emotions start to get out of control because of a minor inconvenience. Breathe deeply and reaffirm the benefit of moderation. You will have the opportunity to respond thoughtfully rather than emotionally by taking this deliberate pause. By incorporating these Stoic values into our daily lives, we develop emotional fortitude and lay the groundwork for the skill of letting go. Keep in mind that patience and diligent practice are required for this journey. You will gradually see a profound change as you learn to control your emotions and become less bothered by the little things. Eric. There once was a man named Eric who resided in a busy city. He was an ambitious person who worked hard and had a strong desire to succeed. But his relentless pursuit of success had a price. He was frequently overburdened, stressed out, and unhappy. Eric had a never-ending list of obligations and goals in his life. He was constantly aiming for more, including success, notoriety, and material possessions. But even though he succeeded in a number of his objectives, he discovered that the peace he sought eluded him. One day, as he was alone in a park, Mr. Bennett, an elderly man, approached Eric. Eric was intrigued by the peace and tranquility that Mr. Bennett exuded. Eric started talking to him, wanting to know the secret to his calm demeanor. Mr. Bennett shared his life's philosophy, the art of letting go, with them as they conversed. He explained that surrendering to external results and appreciating the present moment were the only ways to achieve true peace. Eric was initially skeptical. He believed that to give up his goals and aspirations would be to give up on his dreams. But as he heard Mr. Bennett's advice, something inside him began to rumble. He understood that his quest for success had taken him down a path of unending restlessness, and he was prepared to consider a different way of living. Mr. Bennett offered to be Eric's guide as he learned to let go. He led Eric through a variety of mindfulness exercises and introduced him to the concept of acceptance, which is the acceptance of life as it is without attempting to control or influence every circumstance. Eric initially found it difficult to let go of his need for constant control. He struggled with the pressure to always be successful and the fear of failing. But under Mr. Bennett's patient instruction, Eric came to accept flaws and see failures as opportunities for improvement. Eric learned the joy of simplicity as he continued his journey. He got rid of things he didn't need and concentrated on what made him truly happy. He discovered serenity in the little things, like a stroll through the park, an emotional interaction, or a breathtaking sunset. Eric noticed a significant change in his relationships over time. He allowed people to be themselves by letting go of his expectations of them and accepting them for who they are, flaws and all. His relationships got stronger as a result of this newly discovered acceptance, which also gave him a sense of fulfillment he had never felt before. Eric noticed that he had improved mental clarity and focus as he worked on the art of letting go. He was more effective and efficient at work once his mind was clearer. Additionally, he made time for interests and passions he had long neglected, which nourished his creativity and inner tranquility. One day, as he sat in the park with Mr. Bennett once more, Eric expressed his appreciation for the positive effects of letting go. Realizing that true peace was a journey rather than a destination, he was grateful to have a guide like Mr. Bennett to show him the way. "Peace comes from within, my dear friend," Mr. Bennett said with a warm smile. "You find a sense of peace that is unaffected by outside events when you let go of the need to control and embrace life's flow." Since that time, Eric has led a peaceful and contented life. He continued to harbor dreams and aspirations, but he did not hold them tightly or cling to their results. He kept working on letting go because he understood that true happiness came from being able to find peace in the present moment rather than striving for external success. As a result, Eric's experience with letting go inspired others in the city. Many people sought his advice as they traveled their own paths to inner peace, because he was known as the person who found peace in the midst of chaos. As the days went by, Eric's life turned into a testament to the great strength of letting go. The skill of letting go of attachment to the past, concerns about the future, and burdens of perfection. He found more peace than he could have ever imagined as he took each step, appreciating its beauty. Conclusion: the art of recognizing the trivial things that usually annoy us will be covered in the following chapter, along with an analysis of the underlying causes of these emotional triggers. Understanding the underlying causes of our responses will enable us to fortify our emotional resilience and cultivate a resilient and peaceful mindset. 5 things to consider. 1. Emotional freedom begins with the dichotomy of control. Stoicism teaches that peace comes from recognizing what we can and cannot control. By focusing our energy only on our thoughts, actions, and attitudes, rather than outcomes or other people, we reclaim our emotional balance and avoid unnecessary distress. 2. Negative visualization builds resilience. Regularly imagining worst-case scenarios, as Seneca advises, helps us prepare for adversity and reduces the shock of the unexpected. This practice minimizes emotional reactivity and fosters gratitude for the present moment. 3. Detachment from outcomes leads to inner strength. Rather than being fixated on results, Stoicism encourages us to give our best effort while remaining detached from external success or failure. This mindset reduces anxiety and makes room for joy in the process itself. 4. Acceptance is a path to peace. Stoic acceptance, embracing reality as it is, helps us navigate life with clarity and calm. By choosing our response instead of resisting what we can't change, we develop a deeper sense of control and well-being. 5. Letting go is a daily practice. Through mindfulness, temperance, and the guidance of Stoic values, we can learn to release the trivial irritations that burden us. The story of Eric illustrates how letting go leads to more fulfilling relationships, increased clarity, and enduring peace. Reflection. Questions: what are some situations in your daily life that are outside of your control, and how might you shift your focus away from them toward what you can influence. How would practicing negative visualization help you respond more calmly to unexpected challenges or disappointments? When have you become overly attached to an outcome, and how did that affect your emotional well-being? What might have changed if you had focused on your effort instead? What small irritations consistently disturb your peace, and how could the practice of Stoic acceptance help you respond differently to them? In what ways could incorporating temperance and mindfulness into your daily routine help you become more emotionally resilient and less reactive? Chapter 2. Identifying the little things. We will set out on a journey of self-awareness in this chapter to discover the little things that frequently disturb our contentment and peace. We'll examine Seneca's teachings, a great Stoic philosopher who emphasized the value of self-reflection and introspection in the search for serenity. Introspection, as Seneca once said, let us not allow ourselves to be upset by things we cannot control. This strong prompt encourages us to examine our own motivations for our emotional responses. We learn about our thought processes and the factors that set off emotional disturbances by engaging in self-reflection. Seneca was quoted as saying, "Let us examine our minds thoroughly, and let us sift out the wrong and distorted thoughts that cause unnecessary disturbances." Examining our minds to find wrong or distorted thoughts is a skill we must begin practicing if we are to achieve full unbotheredness. And, if I'm being honest, I believe nearly every thought that distresses us is in one way or another wrong or distorted. How these thoughts came to be that way is generally due to upbringing or damaged relationships with people who were supposed to mean something to us early in life. Distinguishing needs from preferences. Seneca emphasized the value of separating desires from actual needs in his writings. The little things that bother us frequently have more to do with our desires for external comfort or validation than they do with actual needs. Seneca wrote, "People are more troubled by their perceptions of the event than the event itself. Although we need many things, very few are actually essential." Appreciation as a cure. Seneca's philosophy placed a strong emphasis on the expression of gratitude as a potent antidote to unhappiness. We can turn our attention away from life's minor annoyances by practicing gratitude for what we have. Seneca said, "We must be careful to be thankful for what we have, rather than be upset about what we lack. The gloom of discontent is lifted by gratitude." The terror of outside opinions. Seneca issued a warning against becoming enslaved by other people's perspectives. We frequently worry excessively about unimportant issues that have little to no impact on our true selves because we are afraid of being judged or criticized. He said, "Do not let the criticism of others disturb your inner peace. You have no control over other people's perceptions. What matters most is how you behave." The strength of mindfulness. Seneca promoted the use of mindfulness techniques to help us remain mindful of our thoughts and feelings. We become aware of the trivial nature of many disturbances through mindfulness. A tranquil mind is one that is unburdened by needless memories of the past or concerns about the future, he wrote. The knowledge of priorities. Seneca advocated focusing our attention and energy on issues that are truly important. We liberate ourselves from the burden of unimportant concerns by doing this. He said, "The wise person concentrates their efforts on issues that enhance both their own and other people's well-being. The rest doesn't matter." We gain the ability to recognize the little things that disturb our peace as we internalize Seneca's wisdom. We can let go of our attachment to unimportant details and embrace a life of greater tranquility by challenging our emotional responses and reorienting our perspectives. Recognizing triggers. We will examine typical triggers that tend to bother us in our daily lives in this section. We lay the foundation for implementing Stoic principles and mindfulness practices to respond to them effectively by identifying these triggers. Commuting difficulties and traffic jams. Being stuck in traffic or experiencing transportation delays is one of the everyday annoyances of the modern world. Frustration and impatience may be sparked by this inconvenience. Practice negative visualization by imagining yourself stuck in traffic. Then, picture yourself reacting coolly and accepting the situation as it is. Technology complaints. In our tech-driven lives, technological hiccups, slow internet, or broken devices can easily irritate us. Remind yourself of the dichotomy of control when you experience frustrations with technology. Accept that you have no control over technical issues and shift your attention to things you can influence, like looking for a solution or an alternative. Distractions and interruptions. Productivity can be hampered, and irritability can be brought on by frequent interruptions and diversions. Mindful reaction. Adopt the virtue of moderation and establish boundaries to safeguard your attention. When necessary, politely express your need for uninterrupted time. Comparison on social media. Comparisons to carefully curated social media posts can make us feel inadequate and envious of others. Practice gratitude and keep in mind that social media frequently presents a distorted view of reality as part of your mindful response. Put your efforts toward fostering self-acceptance and developing authentic connections. Running late. It can be aggravating to be behind schedule or wait for others. Develop amor fati, or love and acceptance of fate, as a mindful response. Take advantage of these opportunities to practice patience and reflect on oneself. Ali. A young woman named Ali used to reside in a quaint little town. She was a smart, aspirational person who was always eager to tackle new tasks. There was one thing that bothered her a great deal, though, and that was public speaking. Her palms began to perspire, and her heart began to race at the mere thought of speaking in front of a crowd. Ali was baffled as to why she was feeling this way. She had always been self-assured and accomplished success in many areas of her life. But whenever she had to speak in front of an audience, a paralyzing fear overcame her, paralyzing her and preventing her from effectively expressing herself. Ali came across a flyer advertising a public speaking workshop that would be conducted by a well-known communication coach named Mr. Anderson one sunny afternoon as she was strolling through the town square. The workshop allegedly assisted participants in overcoming their anxiety about public speaking and developing their communication skills. Ali was intrigued and made the brave decision to sign up for the workshop. Mr. Anderson urged the participants to identify their triggers and look into the underlying causes of their fears during the first session. Despite her hesitation, Ali bravely revealed her fears. She talked about how she was haunted by her fear of being judged and the potential for making mistakes in front of others. After carefully listening, Mr. Anderson gave Ali and the group a salient insight. Fear is frequently a product of our own perceptions and thoughts, he said. Fear comes from the stories we tell ourselves about these experiences, not from the audience or the circumstances. Ali was touched by these words. She came to understand that her fear of public speaking was not a character flaw, but rather the result of her own self-talk and limiting beliefs. Ali made a commitment to face her triggers and rewrite the stories she told herself after being moved by Mr. Anderson's words. The participants in the subsequent sessions were led by Mr. Anderson through a variety of exercises, including the use of visualization techniques and the reframing of unfavorable thoughts. Ali diligently practiced these techniques in an effort to gradually face her fear. She gradually increased her confidence in her capacity to speak clearly in front of others and away from the workshop. Ali learned during the course of the workshop that the more she faced her triggers head-on and bravely acknowledged them, the less power they had over her. She was aware that fear of making mistakes was a normal part of development and did not in any way diminish her value or her capacity for achievement. One day, near the end of the workshop, Mr. Anderson pleasantly surprised the attendees by setting up a town hall public speaking event. Every participant had the chance to speak briefly in front of an appreciative audience. As Ali's turn drew near, her heart pounded, but this time she accepted the anxiety. She entered the stage after taking a deep breath and started speaking. She realized she was not alone in her struggles as she peered out at the happy faces in the crowd. It was okay for everyone to have their fears and insecurities. Ali experienced a sense of liberation as she spoke. She felt proud of herself as she received warm applause and supportive nods from the audience. By identifying her triggers and rewriting her story, she was able to get past something that had bothered her for a long time. Ali thanked Mr. Anderson for his advice and assistance after the incident. She understood that her path to becoming a skilled communicator was just beginning, but she now had the resources to meet any obstacles along the way with courage and fortitude. From that moment on, Ali grew and prospered. She rose to fame as a public speaker known for her eloquence and fervor. But more importantly, she overcame her fear of public speaking and discovered the joy of sharing her thoughts and ideas with others, embracing the strength of her voice in the process. Others in the town were inspired by Ali's transformation to face their own fears. As a result, word of Ali's victory over her triggers spread widely, becoming a metaphor for bravery, resiliency, and the seemingly endless possibilities that arise when one dares to confront their fears and overcome them. Conclusion: Seneca's teachings and awareness of these triggers give us the power to respond to these circumstances wisely and emotionally resiliently. We will investigate the underlying reasons for our reactions and go into more detail about the practice of emotional resilience in the following chapter. 5 things to consider. 1. Self-reflection is the foundation of emotional resilience. Seneca emphasized that by examining our thoughts and emotional triggers, we can identify distorted thinking and reduce unnecessary disturbances to our peace. 2. Distinguishing between needs and preferences reduces suffering. Much of our discontent stems from unfulfilled desires rather than unmet needs. Recognizing this distinction allows us to let go of trivial annoyances and focus on what truly matters. 3. Gratitude is a powerful antidote to discontent. Shifting our focus from what we lack to what we have, as Seneca advised, can lift the gloom of discontent and foster a greater sense of peace. 4. Mindfulness and Stoic practice help neutralize everyday triggers. From traffic delays to social media comparisons, we can train ourselves to respond with calm acceptance rather than frustration by applying Stoic tools like negative visualization, the dichotomy of control, and amor fati. 5. Facing fears with self-awareness leads to transformation. Ali's story illustrates that identifying triggers and reframing internal narratives can empower us to overcome long-standing fears and grow into our best selves. Reflection questions. What are some small, recurring triggers in your daily life that disturb your peace? And what distorted thoughts might be fueling your reactions to them? Can you think of a recent moment when your frustration or anxiety stemmed more from a desire or preference than from a true need? How might recognizing that change your response next time? How do you typically respond to criticism or judgment from others? What would it look like to shift your focus from their opinions to your own behavior and values, as Seneca advised? In what ways could you incorporate more gratitude into your daily routine to counteract dissatisfaction or envy, especially in situations like social media use or comparison? Like Ali, is there a fear or limiting belief you've carried for a long time that you're ready to confront? What story are you telling yourself about this fear, and how could you begin to rewrite it? Chapter 3. Understanding your triggers. To gain a deeper understanding of the factors that cause us to lose our peace, we will examine the writings of the Stoic philosopher Epictetus in this chapter. He emphasized the significance of understanding our own perceptions and beliefs as the underlying cause of emotional disturbances. The influence of perception. According to Epictetus, it is not the actual events that trouble us, but rather how we interpret them. He advocated the idea that we have the freedom to decide how we view and interpret the world. He said, "What matters is not what happens to you, but how you respond to it." The internal versus external dichotomy of control. The dichotomy of control, or the division between what is under our control, internal, and what is outside of our control, external, was one of Epictetus's central ideas. We release ourselves from pointless worries and anxieties by concentrating our energy on what is within our control. Using the words of Epictetus, we can state that happiness and freedom begin with a clear understanding of one principle. Some things are within our control, and some things are not. Identifying destructive self-talk. Epictetus emphasized the need to identify and counteract unfavorable self-talk. Our feelings and responses can be greatly influenced by the stories we tell ourselves about events and circumstances. You become what you give your attention to, said Epictetus. Someone else will decide what ideas and images you expose yourself to if you don't. Accepting challenges. Epictetus urged his pupils to see adversity as a chance for personal development and education. He believed that overcoming difficulties with a Stoic attitude would cultivate resilience. Epictetus was quoted as saying, "Don't seek for everything to happen as you wish it would, but rather wish that everything happens as it actually will. Then your life will flow well. Fostering inner liberation. True freedom, according to Epictetus, is found in our ability to control our internal reactions rather than attempting to control external events. He believed that we could achieve inner tranquility and contentment by learning to control our emotions. There is only one way to happiness, and that is to cease worrying about things which are beyond our will, said Epictetus in reference. Let's examine our triggers and their underlying causes using Epictetus's knowledge as a guide and the Stoic virtues of self-awareness and emotional fortitude. Identifying the root causes. We start to identify the underlying causes of our emotional triggers as we set out on our journey of self-discovery. Each trigger acts as a thread that ties our current actions to our past perceptions, cherished ideas, and social norms. Fear of failure. Anxiety about failing or making mistakes is a common trigger. We frequently carry the burden of the past's disappointments into the future. Embrace Epictetus' advice on embracing adversity in your Stoic reflection. Consider failure an opportunity for growth and learning rather than something to be afraid of. Recognize that while you don't have complete control over how your efforts turn out, you do have control over how you react to it. Fear of rejection and judgment. Our actions and self-expression can be hampered by our fear of being rejected or judged by others. Recall Epictetus's emphasis on making a distinction between internal and external factors. Put your attention on the virtue of moderation and let go of the need for approval from others. Accept that others will judge you while you stay true to yourself, and embrace the sincerity of your thoughts and deeds. You have no responsibility to live up to what other people think you ought to accomplish. I have no responsibility to be like they expect me to be. It's their mistake, not my failing. Richard P. Feynman. Attachment to outcomes. We frequently develop emotional attachments to particular results, which makes it difficult to handle setbacks. Remember the dichotomy of control, says the Stoic. Focus on the things you can control, such as your efforts, intentions, and deeds. Let go of your attachment to results, realizing that life is unpredictable and that the journey itself is important. Comparison and envy. Comparing ourselves to others all the time can make us feel inadequate and envious. Consider Epictetus' perception-related wisdom. Challenge the self-defeating narratives you create when you compare. Accept gratitude for your individual journey while acknowledging that everyone has their challenges and victories. Emily was a young woman who lived in New Haven. She was a gifted painter with a knack for portraying feelings on canvas. Despite her talent for creativity, Emily battled an underlying frustration that prevented her from developing as an artist. When Emily got criticism on her art, she would become hostile and dismissive. She felt hurt and misunderstood because constructive criticism came off as a personal jab. She was frustrated because she was unable to understand why she had reacted in this manner. One day, Emily happened upon a display of works by a well-known artist named Daniel while browsing a nearby art gallery. Emily approached Daniel to ask him about his creative process, because she was intrigued by the depth of emotion in his paintings. Emily was welcomed by Daniel with a friendly smile and an invitation to have coffee with him. Emily shared with them her difficulties with getting feedback, as well as her confusion over her own responses. Daniel listened intently as they talked, as Emily told her tale. He felt the emotional burden her artistic endeavors carried. Daniel recalled a time when he, too, had encountered similar difficulties as he shared his own experiences with a gentle smile. Emily, sometimes our emotional triggers are buried deep inside of us, he said. They nag us to understand and find healing in the form of inaudible whispers from our past. Let me share a method with you that enabled me to identify my personal triggers. Emily first learned about journaling from Daniel. He advised her to take some time to consider her feelings and responses, focusing on the times when she felt most adamantly protective of her work. Emily made the decision to try journaling out of curiosity and a little skepticism. She poured her feelings onto the pages and soon began to see patterns. Recurring themes included inadequacy and the worry that one wasn't good enough. Emily discovered through her journaling routine that her responses were intricately tied to her upbringing. A critical parent who thought art was not a practical career choice had dismissed Emily's artwork when she was a child. The negative effects of those early experiences on Emily's self-esteem led her to become defensive about her artistic expression. Emily experienced an epiphany like a flash of lightning. She, at last, recognized the underlying reason for her triggers. With this fresh insight, she set out on a path of healing and self-compassion. Emily experimented with various artistic mediums after being inspired by Daniel's exhibition. She let go of the need for approval and allowed herself to experiment and explore. Emily found newfound freedom in her creative process as she painted and drew. On Emily's path to understanding and healing, Daniel remained a beacon of hope, providing assistance and inspiration. He emphasized to her the beauty of vulnerability in the creative process and the transformative power of self-awareness. Emily's work developed into a captivating emotional tapestry that was rich in depth and authenticity. She conveyed her quest for self-awareness and the liberation that resulted from accepting her triggers with compassion with each brushstroke. Emily's artwork quickly appeared in galleries all over the city after word of it spread like wildfire. Her paintings evoked strong emotions in viewers, and critics praised the unvarnished vulnerability that radiated from her canvases. But Emily understood that her newfound success was not just about approval from others. It was a reflection of the inner calm she had attained through awareness of her triggers and therapeutic art-making. Emily's work inspired other people as she continued to gracefully and curiously embrace her triggers. She demonstrated through her experience how self-awareness and understanding can result in significant development and change. Thus, Emily's creative journey became a stunning example of the value of knowing one's triggers and the seemingly limitless potential that lies within the depths of self-compassion and healing. Many people were moved by her story, which served as a reminder that understanding one's inner dance of shadows is frequently the first step toward finding freedom and fulfillment. Conclusion: we can start to unravel the tangles that our triggers have created and let go of their hold on us by applying Epictetus's insight to our reflections. We open the door to more tranquility and peace in our lives by becoming more self-aware and accepting of who we are. The transformative power of perspective and how developing a Stoic mindset can help us get closer to the art of letting go are topics that will be covered in the chapter that follows. 5 things to consider. 1. Perception shapes our emotional experience. Epictetus teaches that it's not external events themselves that disturb us, but how we perceive and interpret them. Shifting our perspective can transform our emotional response. 2. Freedom lies in focusing on what we can control. The Stoic principle of the dichotomy of control reminds us to invest our energy in our own thoughts, choices, and actions, rather than external outcomes, judgments, or events beyond our influence. 3. Self-talk can be a source of distress or liberation. The stories we tell ourselves, often rooted in past experiences, can amplify emotional pain. Becoming aware of negative self-talk is essential for developing emotional resilience and clarity. 4. Triggers reveal deeper wounds and opportunities for growth. Emotional triggers often point to unresolved past experiences or internalized beliefs. Recognizing and examining them can lead to healing, self-compassion, and personal transformation. 5. Adversity is a pathway to inner peace and authentic expression. As illustrated through Emily's story, embracing challenges with a Stoic mindset fosters self-awareness and growth. Letting go of the need for external validation opens the door to creative freedom and inner calm. Reflection. Questions: how do your current perceptions influence the way you react to difficult situations? Reflect on a recent emotional reaction. What story were you telling yourself about the event? What are some things in your life that are outside of your control, and how can you shift your focus to what is within your control? Consider where your energy might be misdirected toward outcomes rather than efforts. What patterns do you notice in your self-talk, especially in moments of criticism or failure? Are these thoughts helping you grow, or are they rooted in fear and past wounds? Which emotional triggers seem to show up repeatedly for you, and what might be the deeper source behind them? Think about how your personal history, beliefs, or values might be influencing these reactions. In what ways can you reframe adversity in your life as a catalyst for growth and resilience? How might you apply Stoic principles to better navigate these challenges with purpose and calm. Chapter 4. Embracing the Mindset Shift. Marcus Aurelius, the Stoic Roman emperor, stands out as yet another ancient philosopher who can help us change the way we think about things. His timeless wisdom has been passed down from generation to generation. This chapter will talk about how his idea of Stoicism can change our lives, and how its principles can help us deal with the challenges of life with strength and peace. The way of the Stoic. Very little is needed to make a happy life. It is all within yourself, in your way of thinking. Marcus Aurelius. Understanding that we can't change the things that happen to us, but we can change how we react and how we understand them, is at the heart of Stoicism. In his Meditations, Marcus Aurelius tells us to build an inner fortress, a peaceful place where the outside world can't bother us. We can control our own happiness by shifting our attention from outside events to how we react to them. The two types of control. You control your mind, not what happens in the outside world. Know this, and you will be strong. Marcus Aurelius. I know I've mentioned this several times already, but we need to figure out what we can control and what we can't. Things that come from outside sources, like other people's actions and unplanned events, are examples of things that can't be controlled. On the other hand, we are fully responsible for our own thoughts, feelings, and decisions. By putting our energy into the second one, we free ourselves from the chains of stress and anger. Acceptance and peace of mind. Stoicism encourages people to accept that life is temporary. People tell us to accept change with grace and calm instead of fighting it. Marcus Aurelius tells us that time is valuable and that dwelling on the past or worrying about the future wastes it. We can focus on the present and make the most of what life has to offer by learning to accept what is. The power of changing your view. What we think about reality shapes it. The Stoic way of thinking tells us to see problems as chances to learn and grow. We can turn problems into stepping stones on the way to wisdom by seeing them as chances to show virtue and strength. Marcus Aurelius taught us that keeping a logical and objective view is important for being able to see the bright side of even the worst situations. Mindfulness and looking inside. Stoicism tells us to look inside ourselves and think about things when our world is full of distractions. We become more aware of our thoughts and feelings when we practice mindfulness. When we know ourselves well enough, we can spot irrational beliefs and negative ways of thinking and replace them with positive, empowering ones. Laura. There once was a woman named Laura who resided in a cute little town. She had always been anxious and was constantly thinking of potential problems. Anxiety and a fear of the unknown weighed heavily on every choice she made. Laura yearned for a change because her life was so stressful and upsetting. Laura came across a dingy old book on Stoicism one day while perusing the shelves of a bookstore. She made the decision to read it out of curiosity. She turned the pages, feeling the profundity of Marcus Aurelius's teachings. Laura came to understand that her mindset was the cause of her worries after being inspired by the Stoic wisdom. It was time for a mindset change because she had always viewed the world through a lens of fear and negativity. Laura began writing in a journal with a strong will. She recorded her anxious thoughts in writing each day and gave them a fresh look. She challenged the worst-case scenarios that her mind frequently conjured, challenging the veracity of her worries. Laura embraced the strength of acceptance and gratitude as she learned more about the Stoic philosophy. She made a conscious effort to look for the positive in every circumstance, appreciating the small things that she had previously taken for granted. Laura noticed a change in her thought processes over time. She started to live in the present rather than be afraid of the future. She discovered how to let go of things she could not change and to concentrate on the things she could. She had adopted the Stoic philosophy as her compass, illuminating a peaceful and tranquil path. Laura's altered perspective had an impact on both her thoughts and actions. She pursued opportunities she would have previously avoided, taking more chances. She felt a newfound sense of freedom and confidence now that her worries were under control. Laura made the decision one day to apply for a promotion at her place of employment, a position she had always desired but never thought she could hold. She faced the challenge head-on, armed with the Stoic wisdom she had embraced, where in the past her anxiety would have held her back. Laura received the promotion, much to her surprise. Her newfound resilience and sense of self-assurance were noticed by her co-workers. She had developed into a positive role model in the workplace, encouraging others to view things more rosily. The more Laura worked on changing her mindset, the more her life began to flourish. She developed closer relationships with her loved ones, appreciating their presence without stressing about the future. The biggest change, though, may have been within herself. Laura had discovered a sense of inner calm that she had never known. Her worries were no longer in charge of her. Instead, she had control over her thoughts and feelings. Over time, Laura's life turned into an example of the effectiveness of embracing a mindset change. She transformed from a persistent worrier to a person who handled difficulties in life with grace and fortitude. The Stoic school of thought had transcended mere words on a page to become her life's guiding principle. The transformative power of mindset is thus demonstrated through Laura's story. She transformed her life in ways she never imagined possible by accepting a fresh viewpoint and letting go of worries and fears. Laura arose from her former self like a phoenix from the ashes, embracing the wonder of the present and leading a life of carefree contentment. Conclusion: if we want to change the way we think about things, Marcus Aurelius is a timeless guide who can give us ideas that are relevant across time and culture. The Stoic philosophy, which focuses on the mind's power and the development of virtue, shows us how to get through life's challenges with strength, wisdom, and a deep sense of calm. By applying these ideas to our daily lives, we start a journey that will change us and lead to a more fulfilling and meaningful life. The next chapter will go into more detail about self-compassion and how it can help you live without worry. 5 things to consider. 1. Happiness begins within. True contentment doesn't come from external events, but from how we interpret and respond to them. Marcus Aurelius taught that a happy life is rooted in our mindset, not in our circumstances. 2. Control what you can, accept what you can't. A core Stoic principle is understanding the boundary between what's in our control, our thoughts and actions, and what's not, external events. Peace comes from focusing only on what we can influence. 3. Change your perspective, change your life. Stoicism encourages us to reframe challenges as opportunities for growth and the practice of virtue. Adopting a rational and calm outlook transforms obstacles into lessons. 4. Live in the present with mindfulness and acceptance. Rather than dwelling on the past or fearing the future, Stoicism invites us to live mindfully in the present. Acceptance of change and impermanence helps us maintain inner peace. 5. Inner reflection leads to lasting transformation. As seen in Laura's story, consistent self-examination and mindset shifts can free us from anxiety and fear. By practicing Stoic principles, we build resilience and develop a grounded, peaceful way of living. Reflection questions: what situations in your life currently feel outside of your control, and how might your mindset toward them change if you focused only on your response? When was the last time you reframed a difficult experience as an opportunity for growth? How did that change your outcome or emotional response? In what areas of your life do fear or anxiety hold you back? And how could a Stoic mindset help you move forward with courage and clarity? How often do you pause to examine your thoughts and challenge whether they are rational or helpful? What would your daily life look like if you lived more fully in the present and let go of past regrets and future worries? Chapter 5. The Art of Self-Compassion. The greatest thing in the world is to know how to belong to oneself. Michel de Montaigne. Michel de Montaigne was a French Renaissance philosopher, essayist, and politician who lived from 1533 to 1592. He is best known for making the essay popular as a type of writing, and for his important work called Essay. The Essay are a collection of essays by Montaigne that are not firmly organized. They cover a lot of different topics, such as human nature, education, friendship, ethics, and the complexity of the self. The way he talks is honest and personal, and he often has a skeptical view of what people know and a strong desire to learn more about himself. He was a fan of Stoicism, and I'm including him in this book because he's a personal favorite of mine, and his wisdom is relevant to the discussion at hand. In the area of self-compassion, Montaigne wants us to look into how knowing and accepting ourselves can help us feel better. Being self-aware helps us understand how our thoughts and feelings work on a deeper level. Montaigne says we shouldn't hide or judge these parts of ourselves. Instead, he says we should approach them with interest and understanding. Deep understanding of ourselves is a force that changes us and helps us feel connected to our deepest selves. Being strong in hard times. Montaigne's thoughts on loss and grief give us deep insights into what it means to be human. Having compassion for yourself can help you get through hard times. It heals the wounds of sadness and disappointment and helps us move through the ups and downs of life with grace. Giving ourselves the same compassion we would give to a friend who is grieving gives us the inner strength to face challenges and come out of hard times with new knowledge. Self-care of the mind. Montaigne's emphasis on staying away from complacency makes us want to take care of ourselves with awareness. Being self-compassionate means recognizing when we need to rest, relax, or have a happy moment. We can improve our overall health and happiness by actively seeking and prioritizing activities that feed our mind, body, and spirit. Self-care that is planned becomes an act of self-love that tells ourselves we deserve care and attention. How to get past the trap of comparison. I want us to be doing things, prolonging life's duties as much as we can. I want death to find me planting my cabbages, neither worrying about it nor the unfinished gardening. Montaigne's gardening analogy makes us think about how pointless it is to compare ourselves to others. Self-compassion means letting go of the need to compare yourself to others and realizing that everyone's journey is different. We free ourselves from the weight of unrealistic standards when we take care of our own garden, with love and respect for its uniqueness. Accepting our flaws, like how imperfect but healthy cabbages are, turns them into a celebration of who we are. How to build bridges to empathy. There is no conversation more boring than the one where everybody agrees. Montaigne. Exploring different points of view like Montaigne did is a good reminder that self-compassion is not something you do by yourself. To build bridges to empathy, we need to accept the richness of human diversity, both in ourselves and in the way we interact with others. By noticing and appreciating the different parts of our personalities, we learn to understand the complicated things that make us human. This understanding goes beyond our own experiences and helps us connect with and understand the different ones of the people around us. Amy. There once was a woman named Amy who resided in a busy city. Amy was a successful professional who on the outside appeared to have it all together. But she battled an unrelenting inner critic and self-doubt on the inside, which frequently made her feel unworthy and unlovable. Amy came across a book by Michel de Montaigne that examined the practice of self-compassion one day while perusing a bookstore. She started reading out of curiosity, and the words struck a deep chord with her. In Montaigne's observations on vulnerability and the process of self-discovery, she recognized herself. Amy started a life-changing journey of self-compassion after being inspired by Montaigne's sage advice. She began by accepting her flaws and being open to vulnerability. She shared her struggles with a few close friends rather than keeping them to herself, expecting criticism but instead receiving acceptance and understanding. Amy developed a close friendship with herself as she continued on her journey of self-discovery. She began writing in her journal on a regular basis and was kind and observant as she explored her thoughts and feelings. She shifted her focus from self-criticism to self-appreciation by listing 3 positive traits about herself each night. Amy's relationships started to flourish as a result of her use of self-compassion. She discovered that she was more understanding and patient with her loved ones, lending them support without passing judgment. She came to understand that by treating herself better, she would be better able to show others the same compassion. Amy experienced a significant setback at work one day. She made a costly error that might have cost her her job. In the past, this would have brought on a wave of anxiety and self-criticism. But this time, armed with self-compassion, she took a different approach. Amy accepted her error and her humanity rather than beating herself up. Everyone makes mistakes, she told herself, and this was an opportunity to grow. She handled the situation with her team with resilience, accepting responsibility without getting caught in a cycle of shame. She was shocked when her co-workers offered their support and understanding. They admired Amy's capacity for taking responsibility for her error and her growth mindset. Amy came to the realization that her self-compassion had not only kept her from giving up, but had also made her relationships with her co-workers stronger. With time, Amy developed into a role model for self-compassion in both her professional and personal lives. She urged her friends and co-workers to accept their flaws and treat themselves with the same kindness they did other people. Her presence sparked a chain reaction of empathy and openness, encouraging a climate of acceptance and development. The path Amy took wasn't without difficulties. There were times when her inner critic would reappear and would try to make her doubt herself. However, she had mastered identifying those times and handling them with self-compassion. Amy developed and grew despite the highs and lows. She was aware that cultivating self-compassion required continued effort. She made the decision to be a friend to herself every day, welcoming her flaws and her life with open arms. As a result, Amy's tale served as an example of the effectiveness of self-compassion. She had learned the art of embracing her flaws, the beauty of vulnerability, and the power of resilience through the teachings of Michel de Montaigne. Her self-compassion journey had changed her life, and she was confident that it would continue to sculpt her path with unconditional love and contentment. Conclusion: as we immerse ourselves in the profound wisdom of Michel de Montaigne, the legacy of self-compassion unfolds as a dynamic and multifaceted journey. Montaigne's essays, filled with introspection and contemplation, become a guiding light on our path toward a more compassionate relationship with ourselves. In embracing our complexity, navigating adversity with resilience, and practicing mindful self-care, we unlock the transformative potential of self-compassion. Montaigne's gift to us is not only a philosophical perspective, but a practical guide to nurturing our souls and fostering a deep sense of connection, both within and beyond. 5 things to consider. 1. Self-awareness and acceptance are transformative powers. Montaigne teaches that knowing and accepting ourselves, flaws, emotions, contradictions, and all, can lead to emotional healing, inner peace, and a more authentic life. 2. Self-compassion builds resilience in the face of hardship. By treating ourselves with the same kindness we would offer a grieving friend, we gain the strength to navigate loss, failure, and adversity with grace and insight. 3. Intentional self-care is a vital act of self-respect. Montaigne's emphasis on avoiding complacency reminds us to consciously nurture our mental and emotional well-being through rest, reflection, and joyful moments. 4th, letting go of comparison frees us to live fully. The gardening metaphor illustrates that tending our own lives with presence and purpose is more fulfilling than measuring ourselves against others' paths or achievements. 5. Embracing our complexity opens the door to empathy. Montaigne's celebration of diverse viewpoints encourages us to recognize and accept our inner contradictions, and in doing so, become more compassionate toward others' humanity as well. Reflection questions. In what ways am I truly aware and accepting of my own flaws, emotions, and contradictions? How does this awareness affect my sense of peace and authenticity? How can I practice self-compassion more regularly, especially during times of hardship or failure? What would it look like to treat myself as kindly as I would a close friend? What intentional self-care habits do I currently have? And where might I need to create more space for rest, reflection, or joy in my daily life? How often do I find myself comparing my life or achievements to others? What would change if I focused more on tending my own garden with care and presence? How can embracing my own complexity and contradictions help me become more empathetic and understanding toward others? Chapter 6. The Resilient Mindset. In our search for resilience, we look to the deep insights of Immanuel Kant, a German philosopher who lived in the 18th century and whose works have left an indelible mark on the field of moral philosophy. When we study the ideas behind Kantian philosophy, we learn useful lessons that help us build the inner strength we need to face life's challenges with unwavering determination. Have the courage to use your own understanding. Kant's call to autonomy is one of the most important ideas on the path to resilience. To become resilient, we need to be brave enough to look inside our own minds and figure out what drives us and how we react to problems. When we take on the responsibility of being self-aware, we give ourselves the tools to face challenges with clarity and purpose. Making adversity more common. Act only according to that maxim, whereby you can at the same time will that it should become a universal law. Kant's categorical imperative forces us to think about how our actions affect everyone. In terms of resilience, this principle tells us to deal with problems not as individuals, but as part of a larger human experience. By realizing that problems and setbacks affect everyone, we find strength in numbers, knowing that our ability to keep going is a sign of the human spirit. The victory of reason over emotion. Thoughts without content are empty, intuitions without concepts are blind. Kant. The way Kant emphasized reason as a guiding force helps us deal with problems in a clear and logical way. According to Kant, resilience means being able to control your feelings instead of acting on them without thinking. Having a logical mind helps us deal with problems, learn from mistakes, and face them with a positive and calm attitude. The honor of sticking it out. Act in such a way that you treat humanity, whether in your own person or in the person of any other, never merely as a means to an end, but always at the same time as an end. Kant's focus on the inherent dignity of every person shows how important it is to treat ourselves and others with respect, even when things are hard. Kantian ideas say that being resilient means recognizing the value of our own and others' well-being. When we face problems with respect, we believe in our ability to keep going and grow. We understand that resilience is a sign of the inherent worth of the human spirit. Accepting the moral need for growth. Out of the crooked timber of humanity, no straight thing was ever made. In the search for resilience, Kant's recognition of the flawed nature of people strikes a deep chord. Of course, life's path is flawed and full of problems. Kant said that being resilient means accepting the crooked parts of our lives and finding strength in our ability to change, learn, and grow. By accepting that setbacks are going to happen, we put ourselves in a position to not only come out stronger, but also more morally developed. Kant's moral framework asks us to look at our actions and how we deal with problems through the lens of universal law. Kant's idea of resilience is that we should align our will with rules that can be used by everyone. This moral challenge pushes us to put our own needs aside and think about how our choices will affect other people. When we face problems while staying true to our morals, we not only become stronger as individuals, but we also strengthen the moral fabric of humanity as a whole. Two things fill the mind with ever-increasing wonder and awe. The more often and the more intensely the mind of thought is drawn to them. The starry heavens above me and the moral law within me. Kant's respect for the moral law within shows that there is hope even when things look hopeless. Kant said that being resilient means drawing on the deep well of moral principles that guide our actions. When we face problems, the clear skies of our rational minds show us a way forward, one that is based on morality and the belief that being moral can help us get through life's problems. This logical hope becomes a lighthouse that leads us through the worst times. Experience without theory is blind, but theory without experience is mere intellectual play. Kant's insistence that theory and experience should be combined shows how important reflective learning is for building resilience. Kant says that to really be resilient, you have to keep thinking about yourself and learning from both your successes and failures. Putting together theoretical ideas with real-life experiences helps build a dynamic resilience that changes and grows over time. This way of thinking helps us find meaning in hard times, turning problems into chances to grow as people and as moral beings. The oneness of need and freedom. In the context of resilience, Kant's ideas about freedom as the independence of the will make sense. To really be resilient, we need to know that we can be a law to ourselves, even when we're dealing with problems from the outside. We may not be able to change everything about our lives, but we can still choose how to react. Kant says that being resilient means using our freedom in a responsible way and aligning our will with principles that help us grow and be strong when things go wrong. The art of sticking with it. When someone is mean to animals, they become mean to people too. Kant said, the way a person treats animals shows what kind of heart he has. Kant's compassion goes beyond how we treat each other and includes how we treat the world around us. Kantian ideas say that being resilient means not only dealing with your own problems, but also realizing that we are all connected with all other living things. We can help make the world more stable and peaceful by showing kindness and compassion to ourselves, others, and the environment. This bigger picture makes the power of resilience even stronger, going beyond individual struggles to include a caring and connected way of life. Sarah. Sarah was a young woman who lived in a sleepy little town. Sarah was well known for her cheery disposition and bright smile, but beneath the surface she was burdened by her failures and struggles in the past. She had not always had a good life, and she was easily shaken by hardship. One day, Sarah was walking through the town park when she saw an elderly man reading a book of wisdom while perched on a bench. She started talking to the man because she was curious, and her curiosity won out. Mr. Thompson was the name of the elderly man who introduced himself, and they started talking about resilience. Sarah confided in him about her difficulties and desire for an easier life. Mr. Thompson shared his own experience developing a resilient mindset while grinning warmly. He shared with Sarah his turbulent youth, which was rife with setbacks and disappointments. He acknowledged that he had experienced moments of vulnerability and disbelief similar to hers. But later, he came across some writings that helped to illuminate his life. "Resilience isn't something we're born with, my dear," Mr. Thompson said, his eyes glistening with knowledge. "It's a skill that we develop as a result of our experiences in life and the knowledge we acquire from a variety of sources." Sarah inquired further about Mr. Thompson's transformative journey because she was curious. He complied, and Sarah was greatly moved by the tale he spun. Mr. Thompson recalled how, in the past, he had a weak self-esteem and would break down at the first sign of failure. But encouraged by the lessons he learned, he began to see adversity as a chance for growth. He learned acceptance and reason with each obstacle he overcame. He was focused on what he could learn from the experience rather than what went wrong. Each challenge had a purpose for him, because he understood how it was making him a stronger and wiser person. He acknowledged that it wasn't easy to develop resilience. He had times when he considered giving up, but he kept telling himself that failures were a normal part of life. He discovered how to welcome change with openness and see it as an opportunity for fresh starts. As Mr. Thompson's tale developed, Sarah experienced a spark of hope within her. She recognized a reflection of herself in his journey and understood that she, too, could adopt a resilient mindset. With Mr. Thompson as her mentor, Sarah sought guidance from the authorities he mentioned, viewing each obstacle as a chance to advance. She reminded herself that she could control how she would perceive things. Over time, Sarah's perspective started to change. Knowing that her ability to recover from life's setbacks rather than her past defined her, she faced challenges with a newfound courage and resiliency. One day, as she was strolling through the park, she once more ran into Mr. Thompson, who was reading and beaming. She approached him and expressed her gratitude for hearing his tale. She cried tears of thanks as she said, "You've changed my life." Mr. Thompson gently patted her hand. "No, my love, you were the one who altered your life," he said. "You adopted a resilient mindset and let it influence your travels. I merely pointed out the way, but you bravely followed it." Sarah continued her journey of resilience after that day because she realized that setbacks were not obstacles to growth, but rather opportunities for it. She accepted change, found meaning in hardship, and approached life with a fresh sense of bravery and grace. Thus, Sarah's tale served as evidence of the resilient mindset's capacity for transformation. She faced the challenges of life with courage under Mr. Thompson's direction, and with the wisdom she had gained, emerging stronger and wiser and unfazed by the storms that came her way. Conclusion: Immanuel Kant's philosophical legacy becomes a moral lighthouse that shows the way to strength. Kantian resilience is a deep and all-encompassing way to deal with life's problems. It combines the ideas of autonomy, moral consistency, rational hope, reflective learning, and compassionate interconnectedness. By accepting the moral challenge, holding on to realistic hope, learning from our mistakes, using our freedom in a responsible way, and persistently showing compassion, we build resilience that goes beyond our own successes and helps everyone thrive. Kantian philosophy says that becoming resilient is both a personal journey and a moral imperative. It means making a promise to live up to the highest ideals of human dignity and moral behavior, even when things go wrong. 5 things to consider. 1. Autonomy is the foundation of resilience. Kant's call to have the courage to use your own understanding invites us to claim our inner authority. Resilience begins with self-awareness and personal responsibility. By thinking for ourselves, we gain the clarity and strength to face adversity with purpose. 2. Adversity connects us to the human experience. Kant's categorical imperative reminds us that we are not alone in our struggles. When we see our hardships as part of the shared human condition, we can draw strength from solidarity and align our actions with values that uplift both ourselves and others. 3. Reason is a steady guide in emotional storms. For Kant, reason is essential. Resilience requires the ability to think clearly, even when emotions run high. By reflecting, not reacting, we become more grounded and capable of turning setbacks into lessons. 4. Moral growth emerges from imperfection. Kant's phrase, "out of the crooked timber of humanity," acknowledges that flaws are part of being human. Resilience isn't about perfection. It's about the moral courage to grow through difficulties, embracing our imperfections as pathways to virtue. 5. Freedom and compassion sustain inner strength. True resilience lies in using our freedom responsibly, aligning our will with moral principles. Kant's ethics extend to how we treat others, and even animals, underscoring that compassion, not just endurance, defines resilient character. Living with dignity, empathy, and purpose strengthens not just the individual, but the moral fabric of society. Reflection questions. How do I currently take responsibility for my own understanding and decisions during challenging times? In what ways can recognizing that adversity is a shared human experience help me feel more connected and supported? How can I better use reason and reflection to manage my emotions when facing setbacks? What flaws or crooked parts of my life have taught me important lessons about growth and resilience? How can I practice compassion and respect toward myself and others to strengthen my resilience and moral character? Chapter 7. Embracing the wisdom of pessimism. We look to the philosophical writings of Arthur Schopenhauer, a German philosopher who lived in the 1800s, to get a deeper understanding of life. His ideas about pessimism give us a new way to look at the human experience. This chapter looks at the contradictory wisdom that comes with being pessimistic. It is based on Schopenhauer's ideas about suffering, the will, and the search for a meaningful life. The lens of pessimism. Life swings like a pendulum backward and forward between pain and boredom. Schopenhauer. His pessimistic philosophy is based on his awareness of the problems that everyone faces in life. Recognizing the swing between pain and boredom is part of finding the wisdom in pessimism. It means realizing that life is full of challenges and times when you feel like you don't fit in anywhere. This recognition is the first step toward a better understanding of how complicated life is for people. How desire rules our lives. Schopenhauer's idea that the will is an endless force that drives human desire shows how unhappy people are when they try to find pleasure and fulfillment. Accepting the wisdom in pessimism means being honest with the fact that people will always want more. Knowing the limits of desire helps us understand what suffering is and how useless it is to depend on outside things for long-lasting happiness. The freedom of asceticism. Schopenhauer's support for asceticism goes against common ideas of what makes people happy and fulfilled. To see the wisdom in pessimism, you have to change your point of view and become more contemplative and present-focused. We free ourselves from the control of an insatiable will by separating ourselves from the never-ending pursuit of desires. Asceticism is a way to find meaning in the present moment, which goes beyond the fleeting nature of pleasures in this world. The art of being kind. Compassion is the basis of morality. Schopenhauer. If you look at Schopenhauer's ideas, compassion is the opposite of the will's natural egoism. Seeing the wisdom in pessimism means realizing that we all suffer and learning to care about other people's pain. When we recognize that everyone feels pain, we can learn more about what it means to be human. When you show compassion, you connect with others and offer comfort and support when life gets hard. Schopenhauer's admission that life is worthless in and of itself is a challenge that is similar to the existential fight against nihilism, something I discuss much more on my own website and in videos. To see the wisdom in pessimism, you have to face the abyss of meaninglessness and figure out how to get through it without giving up. When we realize that outside approval isn't always enough, we can look inside to find meaning and purpose in a life that seems pointless. It is difficult to find happiness within oneself, but it is impossible to find it anywhere else. Schopenhauer. Through the lens of contemplation, Schopenhauer's aesthetics offer a unique way to embrace pessimism. Appreciating art and beauty can help you escape the problems that come with the human condition. By focusing on beautiful things, we can rise above the everyday problems we face and find comfort in thinking about eternal truths. Schopenhauer said that appreciating beauty is a way to see the eternal behind the clouds of the temporary and everyday. Schopenhauer's philosophy encourages us to think about the peace that comes with resignation, or letting go of things that we can't change. Accepting that pessimism can be wise means building up the strength to deal with life's problems in a calm way. Realizing that we can't change some things about life frees us from the chaos of constant resistance and gives us peace when we give up on changing things. How music can take you higher. Schopenhauer's focus on the transcendent power of music as an art form that doesn't represent anything gives us a unique way to accept pessimism. In music, the struggles and pain that are a part of life can be expressed without being tied to specific outside realities. Getting lost in the contemplation of music opens up a way of communicating with everyone that goes beyond the limits of language. Beyond this transcendence, we find a break from the problems of life and connect with what words can't say through the language of sound. The wisdom of being alone. A man can be himself only so long as he is alone, and if he does not love solitude, he will not love freedom, for it is only when he is alone that he is really free. Schopenhauer. Schopenhauer's understanding of the value of being alone gives us a deep understanding of how to accept pessimism. When we're alone, we can face the harsh realities of our lives without the outside influences that can distract and trick us. By embracing times of solitude, we learn more about our inner selves and build the strength to deal with life's challenges in a genuine and self-aware way. Being alone can help you learn more about yourself and give you strength as you deal with the challenges of life. The strange case of caring detachment. By Schopenhauer's definition, compassion means realizing that everyone suffers and that the will to live is pointless at the same time. There is a fine line between accepting the wisdom in pessimism and being emotionally detached from it. By realizing that life is short and that suffering is inevitable, we can look at the world with compassion without getting caught up in the false hopes of endless optimism. With compassionate detachment, we can handle the complexities of human relationships while still being realistic about the problems that come with life. Lily. A woman named Lily resided in New York. She was a driven, ambitious person who was constantly pursuing happiness and success. But despite her best efforts and numerous accomplishments, she was unable to feel content. Lily was seeking shelter from the cold on a gloomy winter afternoon when she found herself in a bookstore. A book titled The Liberating Power of Pessimism caught her attention as she browsed the aisles. She chose to give it a shot because of the unusual title. As she flipped through the pages, she came across Arthur Schopenhauer's insights and his embrace of pessimism. Though the notion of finding freedom in pessimism initially surprised Lily, the words struck a deeper chord with her. Lily was confronted by Schopenhauer's ideas as she continued to pursue happiness and approval from others. The more she read, the more she understood that her constant pursuit of fame and success was a vicious cycle of dissatisfaction. The pursuit of happiness appeared to be an impossible dream that eluded her every time. With each new page, Lily grew to appreciate pessimism's wisdom. It wasn't about sinking into hopelessness. Rather, it was about facing reality square in the face and finding peace in accepting life's flaws. She discovered that her insatiable desire for more was merely a charade to chase after ephemeral happiness mirages. Lily noticed a remarkable change as she adopted pessimism. She discovered how to enjoy the little pleasures in life rather than letting her ambitions and goals rule her life. The laughter of children playing in the park, the comfort of a cup of hot cocoa on a chilly day, and the consolation of a good book on a rainy afternoon all served as sources of solace for her. Lily also realized the value of self-awareness. She gained a better understanding of herself by facing her fears and insecurities. She came to understand that her obsession with success was frequently motivated by a fear of failing and a desire for outside approval. With self-awareness, Lily began to let go of the pressure to meet people's expectations and please them. She accepted her individuality and gave herself permission to be blatantly honest. She no longer felt constrained by social expectations. Instead, she discovered freedom in being true to herself. Lily's relationships grew more complex as she altered her perspective. She found a newfound empathy for the struggles and frailties of those around her, as the compassion she felt for herself spilled over to them. She stopped comparing people's accomplishments to their character and understood that everyone had their own struggles. Lily got a call one day while she was relaxing in a quiet cafe that would forever alter her life. She finally got the job offer of which she had been longing. But instead of the expected rush of excitement, she experienced a feeling of content acceptance. She came to the realization that the job offer was merely another stop along the way, rather than the final destination of her happiness. The real liberation came from accepting the ambiguities and flaws of life and discovering contentment within herself. Lily persisted in embracing pessimism as the years went by. She handled ups and downs with composure because she understood that life was an ever-changing tide. She discovered fulfillment in the journey itself and no longer saw her accomplishments as what made her valuable. Lily's tale ended up serving as an example of the influence of pessimism. It was a path of freedom and contentment rather than one of gloom and despair. Lily discovered inner peace and the fact that happiness was not something to seek after, but rather was something to be found in the here and now, amidst life's imperfect beauty. Conclusion. By accepting the wisdom in pessimism through Arthur Schopenhauer's deep insights, we can unravel the tapestry of existence and get a more complete picture of what it means to be human. We find a special kind of strength by thinking about beauty, accepting what can't be changed, finding comfort in music, looking for knowledge in solitude, and figuring out the paradoxes of compassionate detachment. This kind of strength doesn't come from denying life's problems, but from fully understanding how complicated they are. People use Schopenhauer's philosophy to help them deal with the contradictions in life, which leads to a more genuine connection with the many sides of life. By being pessimistic, we find a source of wisdom that goes against what you might think. It's like looking through a lens that reveals the deepest truths of our lives. It gives us insights that go beyond the usual limits of optimism and help us understand life's journey in a more nuanced and reflective way. 5 things to consider. 1. Life's pendulum swings between pain and boredom. Schopenhauer teaches that human existence oscillates between suffering and emptiness, highlighting the complex, often uncomfortable reality of life that we must acknowledge to gain wisdom. 2. Desire fuels suffering and discontent. Our endless will and craving for more causes ongoing dissatisfaction, and recognizing the limits of desire helps us understand the roots of suffering and the futility of seeking lasting happiness in external things. 3. Freedom comes through asceticism and acceptance. By detaching from the constant pursuit of desires and embracing a contemplative, present-focused mindset, we find liberation from the will's control and discover peace in acceptance of life's imperfections. 4. Compassion arises from shared suffering. Acknowledging that everyone suffers fosters compassion, which counters egoism and connects us through a deeper understanding of human pain, leading to more meaningful relationships and moral insight. 5. Art, solitude, and resignation provide transcendence and strength. Beauty, especially in music, embracing solitude and accepting what cannot be changed, give us ways to rise above life's hardships with calmness and clarity. Cultivating a resilient and authentic existence grounded in realistic pessimism. Reflection. Questions. How do you personally experience the pendulum swing between pain and boredom in your life? And what does this reveal about your relationship with suffering? In what ways have your desires or cravings contributed to feelings of dissatisfaction or unhappiness? How might recognizing the limits of desire change your perspective? How could embracing asceticism or practicing detachment from constant wanting help you find more peace or freedom in your daily life? When have you felt compassion grow from recognizing that others share similar struggles and suffering? How does this awareness affect your interactions with people? How do experiences of solitude, art, or acceptance of what you cannot change help you cope with life's difficulties and find meaning beyond fleeting pleasures? Chapter 8. embracing the eternal recurrence. Friedrich Nietzsche's idea of eternal recurrence forces us to face the deep effects of our choices and live our lives with a sense of cosmic recurrence. Nietzsche's ideas about amor fati, the will to power, and the eternal dance of existence are used as examples in this chapter to show how understanding and navigating the eternal recurrence can change you. The repetition of the cosmos. What if some day or night a demon were to steal after you into your loneliest loneliness and say to you, "This life as you now live it and have lived it, you will have to live once more and innumerable times more." Nietzsche. According to Nietzsche's idea of eternal recurrence, every moment of our lives will happen over and over again, forever. When we accept the wisdom in this idea, we have to face the fact that our choices will have effects that last forever. Realizing that life goes in cycles forces us to look more closely at our actions, intentions, and wants, because we know that they affect not only the present, but also the endless tapestry of time. Love of fate, amor fati. My formula for greatness in a human being is amor fati, that one wants nothing to be different, not forward, not backward, not in all eternity. Nietzsche. Nietzsche's call to embrace amor fati, or love of fate, becomes a way to find your way through the endless cycle. To truly love your fate is to accept everything about your life, including the good and bad times, with a strong will. By coming to deeply accept our entire existence, we can turn the eternal recurrence from a scary thought into a chance to grow, learn about ourselves, and become strong in the face of life's challenges. The drive to rule. I assess the power of a will by how much resistance, pain, torture it endures and knows how to turn to its advantage. Nietzsche. Nietzsche's idea of the will to power tells us to use our inner strength and see problems as chances to grow. Accepting that bad things happen over and over again means seeing them not as problems, but as opportunities to strengthen your will to power. By working through resistance and turning pain into a source of strength, we can deal with the challenges of life in a way that goes beyond the present moment. The dance of being born again and again. And as he, the Übermensch, now looks backward, he also sees looking forward. He sees that all things run in a circle, and that whatever will be has already been. Nietzsche. Nietzsche's idea of eternal recurrence shows that life is like a dance. The past, the present, and the future are all connected. To embrace the wisdom in this dance, you have to go beyond how you think about time in a linear way. When we realize that every happy, sad, and experience will happen again and again, we feel a deep connection to the way life is always changing. The dance turns into a celebration of the present moment and a reminder that everything we do has an effect on the endless spiral of time, getting out of the pit of nihilism. I teach you the overman. Man is something that shall be overcome. What have you done to overcome him? All beings so far have created something beyond themselves, and do you want to be the ebb of this great flood and even go back to the beasts rather than overcome man? Nietzsche. Nietzsche's call to get past nihilism is an important part of figuring out how to get through the eternal recurrence. By following this philosophy, we can rise above the emptiness of meaninglessness and turn our lives into canvases on which we paint our own meaning. By making our own lives, we can avoid falling into the abyss of nihilism and give our lives meaning and purpose. Emily, a woman by the name of Emily, lived just outside a rather large city. She had always been motivated by a desire for approval and success. As she chased after one accomplishment after another, her days were non-stop activity. Nevertheless, despite all of her successes, Emily was still plagued by an underlying sense of emptiness. One day, she was enjoying her coffee while sitting in a cafe when she came across a book with the title The Liberating Path, Embracing Life's Wisdom. She made the decision to read it out of sheer curiosity. She was surprised to find that the book was replete with Friedrich Nietzsche's transformative ideas and the idea of eternal recurrence. Emily felt a significant change happening inside of her as she read the pages. Nietzsche's philosophy questioned her constant need for outside approval and the importance she gave to each and every choice. She was reminded by the idea of eternal recurrence that life was a cyclical dance and that each moment had meaning regardless of whether she succeeded or failed. Emily made the decision to apply the principles in her own life, After being moved by the knowledge she learned, she began by being open and honest, allowing herself to face her greatest anxieties and insecurities. She disclosed her struggles and frailties to her friends and family instead of keeping a front of success. She was surprised to find that being vulnerable led to deeper connections. She took comfort in the knowledge that other people experienced comparable worries and difficulties. It seemed as though their barriers vanished and they were able to connect on a much deeper level. Emily discovered how to embrace impermanence using vulnerability as her guide. She understood that holding on to the past or worrying about the future only prevented her from fully savoring the present. Instead, she concentrated on savoring each experience as an integral part of her journey, regardless of how happy or sad it was. She experienced a new sense of freedom as she allowed herself to let go of old grudges and thought patterns. She was able to forgive herself and others as the burden of resentment was lifted. Emily felt lighter and more at peace, as if a heavy burden had been lifted. Emily approached life with a renewed sense of purpose after learning the lesson of eternal recurrence. She understood that each moment offered the chance to embrace the full range of human experience. She discovered how to dance with life's repetitions, knowing that every moment held its own significance in the vast tapestry of existence, rather than seeking perfection and avoiding pain. Everyone who was close to Emily noticed her change. Others were moved by her newfound openness and authenticity to embrace vulnerability and let go of old grudges. She developed into a symbol of carefree contentment, exuding a tranquility and acceptance that drew people to her. The months went by, and Emily's life underwent a significant change. She stopped seeking approval from others or worrying about failing. Instead, she concentrated on living genuinely and unconditionally, while bravely and gracefully accepting the uncertainties of life. She approached each challenge with an attitude of acceptance and vulnerability, which helped her relationships both personally and professionally flourish. She discovered how to let go of the need for constant success and found joy in the little things in life. Thus, Emily's story served as evidence of the positive effects of adopting Nietzsche's ideas. She developed stronger relationships with others and accepted impermanence with an unwavering sense of peace by being vulnerable. She was able to live authentically in the eternal now by dancing with life's repetitions and finding meaning in each moment thanks to the idea of eternal recurrence. Emily's journey of self-discovery and transformation demonstrated that one could find the road to carefree contentment and fulfillment by accepting life's wisdom. And as she continued on her path, Emily developed into a living illustration of the profound effects of accepting the values that had allowed her heart to experience the true beauty of existence. Conclusion. Inspired by Nietzschean philosophy, the dance of the eternal recurrence shows us a new way to deal with the difficulties of life. We can turn the scary idea of eternal recurrence into a philosophy that changes our lives by accepting amor fati, using the will to power, dancing with the dance of becoming, and getting over the existential abyss. By dancing with destiny, we are given the chance to live our lives honestly, make choices that are good for us, and in doing so, make a legacy that lasts forever. Nietzsche's idea of eternal recurrence isn't just a philosophical idea, it's also a call to action, a way to be involved in the dance of existence that never ends. 5 things to consider. 1. Eternal recurrence calls us to live deliberately. Nietzsche's idea that every moment will repeat infinitely challenges us to carefully consider our choices and live with intention, as each action echoes through an endless cycle of existence. 2. Amor fati teaches us to embrace life fully. Loving our fate means accepting everything, good and bad, without regret. This acceptance transforms life's hardships into opportunities for growth and helps us find strength in adversity. 3. The will to power empowers us to transform suffering. Nietzsche encourages us to harness inner strength by facing resistance and pain head-on, using challenges as fuel to build resilience and personal growth. 4. Life is an ongoing dance of becoming. Understanding time as cyclical rather than linear allows us to appreciate each experience as part of a continuous flow, encouraging us to live fully in the present and recognize the interconnectedness of past, present, and future. 5. Overcoming nihilism by creating meaning. Nietzsche urges us to rise above meaninglessness by actively shaping our own purpose and values, turning life into a creative act rather than succumbing to despair. Reflection. Questions. If you had to live your life over and over again exactly as it is now, what changes would you want to make? And why? How can embracing the idea of amor fati help you accept difficult experiences or mistakes in your life more fully? In what ways have you used challenges or setbacks to grow stronger, reflecting Nietzsche's concept of the will to power? How does thinking about time as cyclical, rather than linear, change the way you view your past, present, and future? What personal meaning or purpose are you actively creating to overcome feelings of emptiness or nihilism in your life? Chapter 9. Embracing existential freedom. In the field of existential philosophy, Jean-Paul Sartre's deep reflections shed light on the nature of human freedom. This chapter talks about how understanding and accepting existential freedom can change your life. It does this by using Sartre's ideas about radical choice, bad faith, and the responsibility that comes with being alive, the empty canvas of being. Existence precedes essence. Sartre. Existentialism is summed up in Sartre's famous quote, "Our existence is not predetermined, and we are the architects of our own essence." Accepting existential freedom means realizing that our lives are not pre-written scripts, but rather blank canvases, ready to be painted with our choices. Knowing that existence comes before essence gives us the power to shape our identities, values, and goals with every action we choose. The weight of making a radical choice. Man is condemned to be free because once thrown into the world, he is responsible for everything he does. Sartre. Sartre's call for existential condemnation to freedom shows how important the choices we make are. To accept existential freedom, we must be aware of the responsibility that comes with being independent. We are forced to make decisions, and each one has grave moral and existential effects on our lives. When we take responsibility for our actions, we enter the realm of authentic living and can intentionally navigate the complicated world we live in. How to break the chains of bad faith. We are our choices. Sartre. This statement by Sartre shows how our choices are deeply connected to who we are. To experience existential freedom, one must break free from the chains of bad faith, which is a false way of living in which people deny their freedom and avoid taking responsibility. Realizing that we make the choices we make gives us the power to live an honest life, taking responsibility for our actions and refusing to give in to the lies of bad faith. The stress of being free. If you're lonely when you're alone, you're in bad company. Sartre's study of existential anxiety looks at how uncomfortable it is to be in touch with our own freedom. When we accept existential freedom, we have to face the anxiety that comes with the weight of our choices. By allowing ourselves to feel the discomfort of being alone and the inherent uncertainty of life, we allow anxiety to change us and help us find our true selves and create our own unique paths. What makes commitment real? Man is defined as a human being and woman as a female. Whenever she behaves as a human being, she is said to imitate the male. Sartre's thoughts on societal expectations push us to question the roles we are told to play and embrace real commitment. To embrace existential freedom, we have to fight against societal pressures and truly commit to the paths we have chosen. We claim our freedom and live our lives on our own terms when we refuse to play the roles and meet the expectations that others have set for us. Authentic commitment is a way to stand up to outside influences and live our lives according to what we really want. Eric. A man named Eric lived in a small community surrounded by hills. Eric had been carrying the weight of society's standards and the need to live up to preconceived notions of success for years. He felt entrapped in a life that was inconsistent with his true aspirations and principles. One day he was perusing a bookstore when he came across The Liberating Path, Embracing Life's Wisdom. He picked it up out of curiosity and was immediately enthralled by the transformative ideas of existential freedom, vulnerability, and carefree living. As he read, he came across the writings of Nietzsche, Sartre, and the Stoics, each of which offered a distinctive viewpoint on how to find contentment in the face of difficulties. As if a curtain had been lifted, Eric had newfound clarity as to what was going on around him. Eric came to the realization that his life had been predetermined by others' expectations. He had given up on his passions and hobbies in favor of a career he didn't really like. He chose to embrace authenticity after becoming inspired by Sartre's idea of radical responsibility. He quit his unfulfilling job and went after a career that matched his real passions. Although it wasn't always simple and there were times when he had second thoughts, he found freedom in defining his own identity and taking responsibility for his decisions. Existential angst surfaced as Eric reveled in his newly discovered freedom. He had to deal with future insecurity, failure-related fears, and the burden of existential responsibility. But he leaned into these emotions rather than trying to suppress them. He understood that the anxiety was a normal aspect of the human experience and a motivator for development. He accepted life's paradoxes and found comfort in his quest for self-awareness by accepting that he didn't have all the answers. When faced with the absurdity of life, Eric looked for significance in his deeds and morals. He developed meaningful relationships with people, valuing each opportunity to embrace the full range of human experience. He delighted in simple pleasures like laughing with friends, taking a stroll in the countryside, or getting lost in a good book. Instead of focusing on seeking approval from others, he chose to live authentically and in accordance with his values. Eric learned the skill of resilience as he handled the ups and downs of life. He gained the strength and grace to deal with adversity by taking a cue from the Stoics. Although he was aware that failures were an unavoidable part of life, he still had control over how they would affect him. He found strength in adversity and learned from each experience, focusing on his attitude and actions rather than worrying about the things he couldn't control. Eric gained a profound sense of gratitude for life's beauty and flaws through his transformative journey. He welcomed the unknown with curiosity and saw every opportunity as a chance to give life to something meaningful. He was happy on his self-discovery journey because he understood that life was a never-ending process of development and change. He was no longer burdened by the weight of external expectations because the burden of freedom had transformed into a gift. As time went on, everyone who was near Eric could see how he was changing. Others were drawn to him by his calm, contented aura. He stopped looking for affirmation or approval and instead concentrated on leading an honest and unapologetic life. His connections with like-minded people who valued him for who he really was deepened, and he developed stronger relationships. Eric had mastered the art of carefree living, finding comfort in accepting the uncertainties of life and embracing his true self. Thus, Eric's tale came to symbolize the transformative power of accepting life's lessons. He had discovered the true beauty of existence within his heart through existential freedom, vulnerability, and unbothered living. He knew that the liberating path required a lifetime of exploration as he continued on his journey. He gradually adopted the ideas of Nietzsche, Sartre, and the Stoics, discovering satisfaction in the freedom of authenticity and meaning in the absurdity of life. And as he made his way through the ups and downs of life, Eric encouraged those around him to follow their own paths of self-discovery, knowing that the secrets to worry-free contentment lay within their grasp, just waiting to be unlocked by the knowledge he had discovered. Conclusion: we can understand what existential freedom is all about by seeing life as a blank slate, accepting the weight of making a radical choice, breaking the chains of bad faith, navigating the anxiety of freedom, and being fully committed to the paths we have chosen. Jean-Paul Sartre's ideas become like a compass, leading us to the deep realization that, in the vastness of our lives, we are both the artists and the masterpieces, weaving the tapestry of freedom with every choice we make. Existential freedom isn't just an idea in philosophy, it's a call to shape our own lives, figure out who we are, and live honestly in the endless world of human possibility. 5 things to consider. 1. Existence precedes essence. We are born without predetermined purpose, and our identities are created through the choices we make. Life is a blank canvas where we paint our own meaning and values. 2. Radical freedom comes with responsibility. Being free means being fully responsible for every decision. This freedom can feel like a heavy burden, but it is also what allows authentic living. 3. Breaking free from bad faith. Living honestly requires rejecting bad faith, the denial of our freedom, and accepting that we are the authors of our actions and lives. 4. Facing existential anxiety. Embracing freedom means confronting the discomfort and loneliness that can come with it. Instead of avoiding this anxiety, we can use it as a catalyst for self-discovery and growth. 5. Authentic commitment and defying social roles. True freedom involves rejecting societal pressures and expectations to live in accordance with our own values. Authentic commitment is the act of owning our choices and living our truth. Reflection. Questions. In what ways do I currently create my own identity through the choices I make? How might I take more conscious responsibility for shaping my life's blank canvas? How do I experience the weight or freedom of radical choice in my daily life? Are there decisions I avoid because of the responsibility they entail? Can I identify moments when I might be living in bad faith by denying my freedom or blaming external circumstances? How might I begin to live more authentically? How do I respond to feelings of loneliness or anxiety that arise when I confront my own freedom? Can I use those feelings as opportunities for growth? What social roles or expectations do I feel pressured to conform to? How can I cultivate authentic commitment by embracing my own values and path? Chapter 10. Embracing the absurd. Albert Camus, French philosopher, author, and journalist, who made important contributions to literature and philosophy in the middle of the 20th century, encourages us to face the absurdity of life as a way to live it peacefully. This chapter takes a look at accepting the absurd by using Camus's deep insights on the absurd, revolt, and the search for meaning in a universe that is indifferent toward us. The absurd is born of this confrontation between the human need and the unreasonable silence of the world. Camus introduces us to the idea of the absurd, a philosophical nexus where our natural need for meaning clashes with what we think is the silence of a universe that doesn't care. Accepting the absurd means admitting that life has no meaning or purpose in and of itself. By facing this existential truth, we free ourselves from the pointless search for meaning in a world that doesn't seem to care about our efforts. The only way to deal with this life, to accept, to rebel, and to die, is to be aware of the irony of it all. Camus calls for a revolt against the absurd, not against the universe, but against the way we live our lives. Accepting the absurd is a deliberate act of defiance that shows our freedom in the face of life's lack of meaning. We can free the human spirit by choosing to live honestly and rejecting the ridiculous. We can then go through life on our own terms, aware of the irony that is all around us. In the depth of winter, I finally learned that within me there lay an invincible summer. Camus paints a picture of the absurd hero, a person who faces the absurdities of life and chooses to live with a calm rebellion. Accepting the absurd means finding an unbeatable summer inside ourselves, a place where we can live without being bothered by the absurdities around us. Realizing that life is full of contradictions and choosing to be honest and calm turns us into absurd heroes who can handle life's problems with an inner peace that isn't affected by the chaos around them. Real generosity towards the future lies in giving all to the present. Camus says that we can free ourselves from the weight of an uncertain future by focusing on the here and now. Accepting the absurd means living in the present and finding meaning and richness in what you are experiencing right now. By giving generously in the present, we stop wasting time and energy on a future that might never come true. This helps us be happy with the way things are going in the present. The struggle itself toward the heights is enough to fill a man's heart. One must imagine Sisyphus happy. Camus' story about Sisyphus shows that life's problems can be used to make us happy, even when they seem silly. To accept the absurd, you have to find meaning in the struggle itself and know that the journey itself is the reward. By picturing Sisyphus being happy, we change our view and realize that the fact that the struggle is silly does not take away from its value and potential for happiness. We find a way to live a carefree life by dancing with the absurd, which is based on Camus' philosophy. We can create a calm rebellion by facing the absurd, fighting against its weight, embracing the present, finding joy in life's struggles, and picturing happiness in the myth of Sisyphus. This dance helps us stay unbothered by most things in the face of life's inherent absurdity. Through Albert Camus's writings, we can learn how to dance the absurd with grace and honesty. Camus' work goes into more detail about the idea that people are bound by the truths they think they know. Accepting an unbothered existence means looking at our truths and realizing that the things we believe affect how we see the world. By questioning our deeply held beliefs and recognizing that our truths are subjective, we free ourselves from the limits that might stop us from living an authentic, stress-free life. Adopting an unbothered existence means resisting the urge to take on identities or beliefs that have already been made for you. By embracing the difficult process of self-discovery, we create our own unique paths, free from societal norms and expectations. In search of authenticity, we find a force that frees us and lets us handle the absurdities of life with real freedom. Camus' philosophy includes relationships between people and stresses how important it is to stay aware of the irony that is in life. To embrace unbothered existence in relationships, you have to be aware of the contradictions and unknowns that are part of human connections. By navigating the complexities of relationships with a clear awareness of the absurd, we build resilience, acceptance, and a calm presence in the face of the problems that come with relationships. Camus had ideas about art and creativity that showed how important it is for each person to express themselves. Embracing unbothered existence means taking a playful and creative approach to life, like appreciating how each painting is unique instead of looking for pre-made masterpieces. We can break free from societal expectations by adding a sense of aesthetic absurdity to our lives. We can then find joy in the act of creation and the beauty of genuine self-expression. The philosophy of Camus tells us to find meaning in the everyday things we do. To live an unbothered life, you have to see the absurd beauty in the things that you struggle with every day. Like trying to reach your personal goals, dealing with problems at work, or doing the simple things that make up your routines. Embracing the fact that these experiences are absurd gives them meaning and turns the ordinary into a source of deep satisfaction. Shall I kill myself or have a cup of coffee? Camus is known for putting the deep question of what life is all about next to the seemingly simple choice of having a coffee in a scene from The Stranger. Adopting an unbothered existence means recognizing that death is inevitable and finding comfort in the simple things that you can do every day. We can move our attention from existential angst to appreciating the present moment when we accept how silly life and death are. A cup of coffee becomes a small act of rebellion against the weight of big questions. You will never be happy as long as you keep looking for what makes you happy. If you're always looking for the point of life, you'll never live. Camus' ideas about happiness and the search for meaning help us live a life that doesn't bother us. Accepting the absurd means realizing that it's pointless to try to find a single definition of happiness or the ultimate meaning of life. By being fully present in the present moment, we free ourselves from the need to always be looking for something and let happiness show up in the everyday moments that make up our lives. Maya. A woman by the name of Maya lived in the center of a bustling city. She was a driven and ambitious person who was constantly pursuing success and the next career milestone. Many of Maya's objectives had been accomplished, but she was still plagued by an underlying sense of emptiness. One evening she was strolling through a park when she heard a group of people talking in depth. She approached them out of curiosity and found that they were talking about Albert Camus' writings and the idea of embracing the absurd. Maya was intrigued by their conversation and decided to learn more about this philosophy. She studied existential literature and read works by Camus in an effort to comprehend the significance of accepting the absurdity of life. Maya realized that much of her dissatisfaction stemmed from the weight of societal expectations as she became more and more engrossed in these philosophical insights. She had been seeking outside approval, hoping that reaching particular goals would make her happy for the long run. But Camus's philosophy confounded her worldview. He discussed the universe's apathy and the futility of looking for ultimate significance in a world that is by nature chaotic. Maya started to realize that her unrelenting drive for achievement was based on a delusion, the notion that achieving material success would result in long-lasting fulfillment. Maya began to experience freedom as she accepted the absurd as a concept and began to accept the inevitability of life's uncertainties. She started to laugh at the ridiculousness of it all rather than feeling burdened by the pressure to live up to social expectations. She came to understand that uncertainty in life was a normal part of being a human and that it was acceptable to not know all the answers. She felt relieved after acknowledging the absurdity because it took some of the pressure off of trying to manage every aspect of her life. Expectations no longer weighing her down, Maya found herself rediscovering the joy of the present. She no longer saw life as a straight line leading to some elusive goal, but rather as a series of experiences, each of which was worthwhile in its own right. Simple pleasures like a warm cup of coffee in the morning, the sound of raindrops on the window, and children laughing in the park started to grow on her. She found fulfillment in fully embracing the present rather than constantly aiming for the future. Maya gained the ability to appreciate the beauty of flaws in both herself and other people. She was aware that no one had all the answers and that life was both a beautiful and messy journey due to its complexity. She was content in her journey of growth and self-discovery rather than seeking perfection. She gave up comparing herself to others and began concentrating on her individual, authentic path. Maya came to understand that meaning wasn't something that could be found outside of oneself as she continued to embrace the absurdity of existence. She had the power to create it through her decisions and deeds. Simple deeds of kindness, nurturing her relationships, and pursuing her passions were where she found meaning. She found meaning in her life through the ordinary moments rather than by looking for a greater purpose. Months passed and Maya's family and friends noticed a significant change in her. She exuded a newly discovered tranquility and contentment. She was freed from the weight of expectations and instead discovered freedom in accepting life's uncertainties. Her friends were in awe of her ability to handle difficulties with poise and fortitude. Because she understood that life's absurdity was an invitation to find joy despite challenges, she dealt with setbacks with humor. Maya's journey toward accepting the absurdity of life had changed her for the better. She discovered true freedom and unburdened contentment by letting go of the need for outside approval and accepting the inherent uncertainties of life. She had acquired the ability to find humor in the absurdity of it all, to see the beauty in flaws, and to give meaning in her own special way. Maya had lived a life of authenticity and fulfillment because she had the wisdom to embrace the absurd and had unlocked the true beauty of existence within her heart. Conclusion. Inspired by Albert Camus' wise words, the symphony of unbothered absurdity has a melody that goes beyond the problems that come with life's contradictions. We can achieve a state of unbothered existence by facing the absurd, rebelling with peace, embracing the present, finding joy in struggle, and figuring out how to deal with the absurdity of relationships, creativity, rituals, death, and time. Albert Camus' ideas aren't just a philosophical guide, they're also a peaceful invitation to dance with the absurdity of life and find meaning in being true to yourself while living in the beautiful and unpredictable chaos of life. Living an unbothered life turns into an art of accepting the absurd with grace, strength, and a constant appreciation for the fleeting moments that make life truly amazing. 5 things to consider. 1. The absurd arises from the clash between our search for meaning and a silent universe. Camus teaches us that life has no inherent meaning, and accepting this paradox frees us from futile attempts to find ultimate purpose. 2. Revolt against the absurd is an act of freedom. Instead of despairing, we can rebel peacefully by living authentically and embracing life's inherent irony, creating our own meaning through honest, deliberate choices. 3. Finding peace in the present moment, focusing on the here and now, and appreciating simple joys allows us to live fully despite life's uncertainties and the inevitability of death. 4. The journey and struggle themselves hold meaning. Like Sisyphus finding happiness in his endless task, we can find value and joy in the process of living, rather than in any ultimate goal. 5. Authenticity and humor as tools to navigate life's absurdities. By accepting life's contradictions and embracing our individuality with humor and grace, we build resilience and discover freedom beyond societal expectations. Reflection questions. In what ways have you experienced the tension between your desire for meaning and the apparent indifference of the world around you? What does rebelling against the absurd mean to you personally, and how might you practice this kind of rebellion in your daily life? How often do you truly live in the present moment, and what might be preventing you from fully embracing the here and now? What are some struggles or repetitive tasks in your life that you typically view as meaningless? And how might your perspective shift if you viewed the process itself as meaningful? How do societal expectations or the search for external approval influence your choices? And what would it look like to let go of those pressures in pursuit of a more unbothered, authentic existence? Chapter 11. Embracing Unbothered Living. At the end of our discussion in the last chapter, we started flirting with the idea that three strong philosophical frameworks intersect in many ways: Stoicism, existentialism, and absurdism. Our journey has taken us through the realms of ancient Stoic wisdom, the deep insights of existentialists, and the thoughtful reflections of absurdists. Now is the time to put these different points of view together and embrace a state of trouble-free living. Stoicism encourages inner strength and resilience, which is the basis for a peaceful life. According to the Stoic philosophy, we should focus on what we can control and accept with grace what we can't change. With an understanding of how impersonal outside events are, we no longer have to try to control every aspect. Adopting the Stoic way of thinking helps us find happiness in being ourselves and lining up our lives with nature's big plan. By choosing to seek virtue and wisdom, we free ourselves from the constant need for approval from other people. Stoicism teaches us that even though we can't always control what happens in the outside world, we can control how we react to it. Being good at virtue and having a calm mind make it easier to get through life's problems. Existentialism tells us to face the complicated parts of life with honesty and courage, that it serves as a reminder that uncertainty is a part of life and that we have the power to give our journey meaning. When life is absurd and causes existential angst, accepting the paradox becomes the most important thing to do. Existentialism tells us that we can make meaning through our choices and actions instead of searching for ultimate meaning in a universe that doesn't care about us. The existential challenge is to think about what our lives are all about and take responsibility for making our own plans. We deal with the worries that come with facing the unknown, accepting that our existence isn't clear, and making sense of a universe that doesn't have a purpose by itself. Absurdism gives us a new way to look at the human condition. When we become aware of the contradictions and absurdities that exist in life, we learn to accept them and find freedom in facing the unknowns that come with it. Through the lens of the absurd, authenticity and the beauty of flaws become clear. People don't follow a straight path to happiness. Instead, they enjoy the present moment and find meaning in following their passions and making meaningful connections. The absurd makes us think about deep existential questions without trying to find clear answers. It pushes us to explore the deepest parts of our minds and gives us a reason to question everything. Stoicism, existentialism, and absurdism come together to form the art of trouble-free living. It gives us the strength, resilience, and honesty we need to deal with the challenges of life. We find a way to live without being bothered by the Stoic focus on what can be controlled, the existential wisdom of accepting what is unknown, and the absurd's comfort in life's contradictions. Living without problems doesn't mean hiding your feelings or avoiding life's problems. It means accepting the whole range of human experience. It tells us to enjoy the fullness of life without being limited by small things. Before we come to a conclusion, let us think about what we have learned. Let's honor the strength of Stoicism, the bravery of existentialism, and the fun of how absurd life can be. Untroubled living is a practiced way of life that encourages people to be themselves, accept life's paradoxes, and find happiness in the process, rather than focusing on the results. By combining Stoicism, existentialism, and absurdism, the freeing path to carefree living opens up. Accepting the absurdity of life is a wise way to free yourself from outside standards. With each step, we find freedom in being ourselves, strength in facing challenges, and happiness in the present. We go through life without being bothered by small things, and we find happiness in accepting life's unknowns. When you live without worry, you can rise above the small things and distractions that often try to get your attention. We rise above them and look at the bigger picture of our lives instead of letting small irritations get in the way of being ourselves. Mindfulness practice is necessary for a trouble-free life. Mindfulness exercises make us more aware of our thoughts and feelings, which makes it easier to deal with problems in life in a calm way. Being mindful helps us see that both happiness and sadness are temporary, which lets us enjoy the present moment and its simple pleasures. Mindfulness and trouble-free living go hand in hand, and both require mastery of the art of letting go. Allowing yourself to let go does not mean being apathetic or indifferent. Rather, it means realizing that you can't control every outcome. Giving up the urge to change reality to fit our needs relieves the stress that comes from doing things that don't work. Forgiving is a part of living without problems. Forgiving others and forgiving ourselves both free us from emotional burdens. Deciding to forgive is a declaration of freedom that frees us from the weight of past bad behavior. The willingness to forgive comes from realizing that holding a grudge is bad for our health. Picking freedom in forgiveness becomes a way to free ourselves from emotional chains. Acceptance is a key part of living a trouble-free life. Acceptance means recognizing that life is uncertain and being able to handle the unexpected turns and twists with grace. Accepting that life isn't perfect can bring you peace. Acceptance is not the same as giving up. It means being calm about the way things are. We can find peace in accepting the flaws that make our journey unique and beautiful by realizing that life isn't perfect. People who want to live a trouble-free life know that being vulnerable can make them stronger. Instead of shutting ourselves off from the outside world, we become honest and open-hearted. Vulnerability makes it easier to connect with others, which leads to more compassion and understanding, because we are all human. When you let yourself be vulnerable, you stop having to hide behind a mask or a front. Instead, we muster the courage to show who we really are, without hiding anything, and without worrying about what other people might think. Being trouble-free means recognizing the complicated web of emotions. Emotions are not judged or pushed down. Instead, the whole range is accepted, from happiness to sadness, anger to fear. People believe that emotions can tell us about our inner selves. Emotional intelligence goes up when we are mindful and aware of ourselves. Negative emotions are watched with interest, which keeps them from getting tangled up. Being aware of and understanding the complexity of emotions is what makes the human experience rich. This idea of being unbothered and letting the little things go means we are always developing a way of thinking that recognizes that small problems only last for a short time and that we should strive to focus our attention on the bigger picture. When people adopt this point of view, they free themselves from needless stress and anger, which makes room for a more peaceful and grateful approach to life. It means realizing that in life's grand symphony, the notes of happiness and satisfaction often drown out the notes of short-term problems. From this point of view, the real point is to find meaning, joy, and peace in the midst of life's constant ups and downs, building a strong spirit that can handle the small things that try to upset our peace. It's normal to run into obstacles and frustrations because the human condition is unrelenting in its effort to wear us down. The secret, though, is realizing that not everything merits our focus and emotional attention. It is my hope that we can come to this realization more easily once we understand 1. Everything is absurd. 2. We have little to no control over most things. And 3. There's no point in making the human condition any harder than it already is. Thank you. Thank you from the depths of my heart for embarking on this journey through Unbothered, the art and philosophy of not letting little things get to you. Your decision to explore these pages and delve into the wisdom of Stoicism, existentialism, and absurdism means the world to me. I hope that as you turned each page, you found inspiration and insights that resonate deeply with your soul. My goal in writing this book was to offer you a roadmap to unbothered living, a path that leads to contentment, resilience, and the freedom to embrace life's complexities with grace. Your willingness to explore these philosophical perspectives and embrace the art of unbothered living fills me with immense gratitude. As an author, there is nothing more rewarding than knowing that my words have touched someone's life and sparked a sense of self-discovery and growth. If you hunger for more wisdom and reflections, I invite you to connect with me further. You can find me on various social media platforms where I share daily musings, insights, and behind-the-scenes glimpses into my writing process. Once again, thank you for being a part of this meaningful exploration. Your support and engagement mean the world to me, and I am honored to have shared this adventure with you. With heartfelt gratitude, John Morrison, PhD.